Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. This happened in July of last year. My house was having major issues, and I ended up without power for several days while repairs were being done. I work from home, so this was a serious problem. I ultimately had to rent an Airbnb to stay at until the power was restored. I don't live in a big city, so there weren't many Airbnb options nearby. The closest one available at a reasonable price was about a 45-minute drive from my home. It was located in an even smaller and more secluded part of town, an area often referred to as one of the worst places to live. I was only planning to stay a few days, though, and the money I was saving made it feel worth the risk. When I arrived, I went straight inside and basically straight to bed, exhausted from everything going on with my house. The next morning, I got up early and started setting up my laptop and workspace. Just before I had to start work, there was a knock at the door. I debated whether to open it. After all, it wasn't even my house. But thinking it might be the host or someone important, I went to check. Standing on the porch was a man, maybe in his early 30s, covered in tattoos. He didn't look like a host or even a salesperson. I had no idea why he was there, and didn't really want to find out. I decided to leave it and walked away from the door, heading back to my desk to finish getting ready for work. I had meetings and a lot to catch up on after being out the last few days. I don't think I left my desk until around 8 p.m. Even then, I was thinking about getting more work done after grabbing dinner. Only a couple of minutes after I got back with food and started eating, there was another knock at the door. I immediately got up to check, and unsurprisingly, it was that same man from before. What could he possibly want from me this late in the day? I wasn't so much scared as I was annoyed. Again, I walked away from the door and went back to eat. Around 10 p.m., I decided to work for at least another hour. I was tired, but the work needed to be done, and I knew I'd just be more stressed tomorrow if I didn't handle it now. I put my headphones in and focused. I got a lot done, and once I was satisfied, I finally closed my laptop for the night. I hadn't realized how dark it had gotten. My laptop screen had been the only light on. I walked to the front and flicked on the hallway light, and a chill instantly ran through me. On the floor were faint but unmistakable shoe prints. Looking around, I saw them all over the place, even going right up behind the desk where I had been sitting and working. Terrified, I slowly followed the prints down the hallway toward the back door, which was cracked open. I can't even describe what I was feeling, it was pure horror. Then, just moments later, I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. They were slow and careful. When they reached the bottom, a man peered into the hallway and looked directly at me. It was the same man, easily recognizable by the tattoos. He looked surprised to see me up and moving around, but the surprise quickly turned to rage. His face showed nothing but cold anger. I wanted to speak, say something, but no words came out. My heart pounding, I turned and sprinted out the back door. I ran through the yard and into the trees behind the houses. I sat behind a tree and pulled out my phone to call 911, but quickly canceled the call when I heard footsteps running toward me. I didn't expect him to follow me, but luckily, he passed by without noticing and continued running out into the night. Once I felt safe enough, I called the police and waited nearby. When they arrived, I returned to the Airbnb and gave them a detailed description of the man. They actually found him the next day. He was identified by the tattoos I'd seen. He had broken into several homes in the days before, and had done horrible things to the people who lived in them. I don't know what he was planning to do to me, or why he didn't act earlier, but I'm just grateful he's no longer a threat. I can rest easy knowing he won't be able to hurt anyone else again. It's nearly a 3-day drive from Portland to Chicago, so I had booked places to stay along the way. I wasn't too particular about where I stopped, Just opted for Airbnb so the trip would feel more personal and less like I was staying in cookie-cutter hotels the whole time. My first Airbnb was in Wyoming. That part of the route doesn't pass through any major cities, so the house was in a very small town. It couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 miles wide. As soon as I crossed into Wyoming, it started snowing heavily, which only dragged out an already long day of driving. By the time I reached the town, the sun had set and the roads were covered in snow. The place was practically dead. I don't know much about small towns, but this looked exactly how I imagined: quiet, dim, and isolated, especially in a state like Wyoming. I was hoping to find a McDonald's or something for a quick dinner, but it was immediately clear there wasn't going to be one. So I drove through the empty town and turned onto the road leading to my Airbnb. The driveway was long, leading to a small house sitting alone in the middle of a field. Snow-covered pine trees stood tall in the front yard, the only things breaking up the white, still landscape. I parked to the side, grabbed my bag, and walked around to the front door. I entered the code, stepped inside, and quickly shut the door behind me to keep the cold out. It was small, maybe 500 square feet, with just a living room, a bedroom, and a tiny bathroom. I took my shoes off, dropped my bag next to the bed, and sank onto the couch. Then I heard a loud thump come from the bedroom. I turned toward the doorway I had just come through. The sound was clear, and it made me pause. I got up and walked back, flipping on the light. Everything looked the same. I checked the little bathroom. Nothing. The only other door in the house was the bedroom closet. I walked over and pulled the handle. It didn't budge. It felt like it was locked from the other side. It was weird. Why would a bedroom closet be locked? I figured maybe it was just a maintenance closet the host used to store supplies. There really wasn't any other storage space in the house, so that explanation made sense, at least for the moment. I went back to the living room and rested my eyes on the couch, thinking through my plan for the next day. About 15 minutes later, I got up and went to the window to check on the weather. It was still snowing, and the sky was pitch black. No light from the town, nothing beyond the pine trees. Just complete darkness. I shut the blinds and turned back to the couch, but something caught my eye. A shadow had moved in the bedroom. It was subtle. Smooth. Like the shadow of a door slowly opening or closing. I walked toward the bedroom, listening carefully as I approached. I looked in. Everything was exactly how I left it. Nothing seemed out of place. But I knew I saw something move in there. I scanned the room again, and my eyes landed on the closet. It was closed. Still. But something about it made my stomach twist. I walked up and grabbed the handle. This time, it opened without resistance. The closet was empty. Just a small, walk-in space with bare walls and no shelves. Nothing inside. Before I could fully process it, I heard a sound behind me. I spun around. A large man was standing in the bathroom doorway. His face was beaten and bruised, covered in scratches and dried blood. His clothes were worn and dirty. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. But the most disturbing part? He didn't even react to me. He walked into the bedroom slowly and knelt down beside the bed. Reaching underneath, he pulled out a dirty, worn-out duffel bag. Then, without saying a word, or even looking at me, he got up and walked out of the room, then right out the front door. I ran after him and watched from the porch as he trudged through the snow, slowly disappearing beyond the edge of the house lights. I called the police and gave them a full description. They said they would contact the Airbnb host, but I never got any updates. No follow-up, no closure. I tried to tell myself that maybe he was just using the place for shelter, maybe he had nowhere else to go. But the way he looked, the way he moved, the fact that the closet was locked when I arrived, I can't stop thinking about it. If I had gone to bed right away, he would have been just inches away. Hiding in the dark. Watching me sleep. I had booked an Airbnb several weeks in advance in a town I had never been to. A client I was meeting for work lived in the area, so I was only staying for one night and planned to drive back home the next day. The drive was about 3 hours. When I pulled into the driveway and got out, the neighborhood was unusually quiet. Most of the houses had their lights off, and tall trees covered the lawns, blocking much of the view. The only thing I noticed was a person walking down the road. They were far away, and nothing looked especially strange about them, but for some reason, the sight gave me an uneasy feeling. I unlocked the door and went inside, settling in. The house was average, nothing fancy, but it was perfect for what I needed. After looking around and checking the place out, I opened the front door to grab another bag from my car. As I stepped out onto the porch, I noticed someone standing in the road. It was the same person I had seen walking earlier. But now, they weren't moving. They were just standing still, facing the Airbnb. As I walked toward my car, they seemed to notice me and immediately began walking away. I kept an eye on them, feeling suspicious, but they just continued down the street without turning around. I went back inside and locked the doors, then opened the garage and pulled my car in, just to be safe. Over the next couple of hours, I checked outside a few times to see if the person had returned, but I didn't see them again. Needing to wake up early the next morning, I eventually went to bed. I slept decently, waking up a few times during the night, but around 4 a.m., my alarm went off. It was still dark outside, and I groggily sat up in bed, only to notice a light shining under the bedroom door. I was confused. I didn't remember leaving any lights on. I figured maybe I had just overlooked a kitchen light or something. I got out of bed and walked up to the door. Just before I opened it, I heard movement coming from the end of the hallway. I slowly opened the door and saw that it was the living room light that was on. I immediately knew I hadn't left it like that. The sound continued, and as I walked down the hallway and looked into the living room, I froze. A man was crouched in the corner, rummaging through one of my bags. He wore a black hoodie and ripped jeans, exactly what the person I had seen outside was wearing. He turned and looked at me. He didn't seem startled at all. It was like he had been expecting me. He dropped the bag and shouted for me to stay where I was. Then he started moving toward me. I had only a split second to react. I turned and sprinted back to the bedroom, slamming the door just before he reached me. He immediately began ramming into it, then started messing with the lock from the other side. Thinking fast, I opened the window, jumped out, and ran. By the time I returned with the police, the man was gone, and so were my bags. Even worse, the bedroom door was open. He had managed to pick the lock and get inside. If I had chosen to hide in the bathroom or closet instead of escaping, I honestly don't know what would have happened. The police believe there may have been more intent behind this man's actions than just robbing me. I pray he doesn't find me again. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.